Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Barry Gibb was born on September 1st, 1946 in a place called Douglas on the Isle of Man. He was the second of 5 kids in the Gibb family, and everyone in his family loved music. His parents, Hugh and Barbara Gibb, made their home a place where music and creativity were everywhere, which helped Barry fall in love with making songs from a very young age. Barry was really good at writing songs that had strong feelings and were put together in clever ways. And this talent would be important for more than 60 years, when the Gibb family moved to Manchester, England, and then later to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia. Barry's dream of making music got even bigger, especially when he started working with his younger twin brothers, Maurice and Robin. The start of the Bee Gees was meant to be. In the late 1950s, Barry, Robin, and Maurice started singing together, creating their special harmonies and unique way of singing that would later make the whole world love them. At first, they performed in small places in Australia, but the big break came in the mid-1960s when they caught the attention of an important DJ named Bill Gates and a music producer named Robert Stigwood, who brought them to England. From that point on, they became super famous really fast. The Bee Gees became known for making hit songs that topped the charts in many different styles of music. From soft, gentle love songs in the 1960s like To Love Somebody in Massachusetts to the amazing disco songs of the 1970s like Stayin Alive, Night Fever and How Deep Is Your Love. Barry, being the oldest brother and the creative leader, was really important in creating the group's sound. His high-pitched falsetto voice became famous, his songwriting lasted forever, and his way of producing music was totally new and different. The 1970s were Barry Gibb's best years, as he helped bring in the disco music revolution that changed music all around the world. The Bee Gees' songs for the Saturday Night Fever movie soundtrack became one of the best-selling albums ever made, winning them Grammy Awards and making sure everyone would remember them as music legends. Besides his success with the Bee Gees, Barry's talents went way beyond just the trio. He wrote and produced hit songs for many other artists, including Barbra Streisand with Guilty, Diana Ross with Chain Reaction, and Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton with Islands in the Stream. His amazing ability to change with new music trends, while still keeping the heart and emotion in his songs, made him one of the most flexible and talented people in music history. But Barry's journey wasn't all happy and easy. The deaths of his brothers Andy in 1988, Maurice in 2003, and Robin in 2012 hurt him deeply and left him very sad. Each time he lost a brother, it wasn't just losing a family member, but also losing a creative partnership that had been his whole life. Even though these terrible things happened, Barry kept going, honoring their memory by continuing to make music. His later solo albums, like In the Now from 2016, show a more thoughtful and personal side of his music, showing how deep his feelings are, and the wisdom of a man who has experienced both incredible success and terrible loss. Barry has often talked about feeling like his brothers are still with him when he performs, suggesting that his connection with them goes beyond death, a bond that will last forever through their songs. Barry Gibb's legacy in the music industry is huge and impossible to measure. As one of the few artists to have written or helped write 16 #1 hits in the United States, his influence reaches across different generations and types of music. He has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 2018 for his work in music and charity. This honor shows not only how excellent he is as an artist, but also his kind and generous spirit. His unique falsetto voice, heartfelt lyrics, and emotional performances continue to inspire countless musicians and songwriters around the world. Barry Gibb's love life has been as eventful and lasting as his legendary career. It started with his first marriage to Maureen Bates, and later finding lifelong companionship with Linda Gray, his devoted wife of more than 50 years. Each relationship marked an important chapter in his personal growth, showing the challenges of being famous, the power of love, and the stability that finally allowed him to succeed as both a person and an artist. Barry Gibb married Maureen Bates in 1966 at a time when he was still a young man about to become internationally famous. The Bee Gees were in their early stages of forming, and Barry was balancing the pressures of a growing music career with the responsibilities of being married. Maureen, from what most people say, gave him emotional support and comfort during those uncertain early years when the Gibb brothers were still struggling to become well known. The two shared a simple and private life away from the spotlight of show business. However, as fame began to change Barry's world, the demands of his quickly rising career naturally put strain on their relationship. The craziness of touring, recording, and public attention made it harder and harder for the young couple to keep things normal. After 4 years together, their marriage ended in divorce in 1970. Though their marriage was short, it was an important stage in Barry's life, a time of finding himself and the emotional growing pains that came with becoming an adult under the bright lights of fame. His marriage to Maureen, while it didn't last, taught him valuable lessons about love, loyalty, and the sacrifices that often come with success. That same year, fate stepped in the most amazing way when Barry met Linda Gray, the woman who would become not only his wife, but also his anchor through decades of success and tragedy. Linda, a former Miss Edinburgh and a Scottish beauty queen, had a quiet strength and grace that immediately attracted Barry. The two met during the Bee Gees' fast rise in the early 1970s, a time when the brothers were changing from promising pop artists into international sensations. Barry was instantly drawn to Linda's elegance and down-to-earth personality, which was a refreshing change from the chaos and glamour of the entertainment world. Their romance grew quickly, and by September 1st, 1970, they were married, a union that would become one of the longest-lasting and most admired marriages in show business history. Throughout their marriage, Linda Gray became the steady foundation that Barry built his life on. She was not only his partner in love, but also his emotional safe place, helping him deal with the pressures of fame, the intensity of family relationships, and the creative demands of keeping the Bee Gees' extraordinary legacy going. Together, they built a family that showed the depth of their bond, raising 5 children: Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. Their home life, though sometimes touched by the struggles of fame and loss, was deeply rooted in love, mutual respect, and spiritual connection. Linda stood by Barry through every major change. From the Bee Gees' dazzling success in the disco era to the heartbreaking loss of his brothers Maurice and Robin, she stayed strong during his battles with exhaustion, grief, and the emotional toll of outliving the siblings who had shared his musical journey. In interviews, Barry has often said that Linda saved him emotionally and spiritually. He has talked openly about how her unwavering love kept him grounded and gave him the strength to keep going when his world seemed to fall apart. "Linda is my rock," he once said, emphasizing that her loyalty and devotion kept him from losing himself in fame's darker temptations. While many celebrity marriages have fallen apart under the weight of pressure and public scrutiny, Barry and Linda's union lasted, a rare example of genuine partnership in an industry known for short-lived relationships. Their love story, which began more than half a century ago, continues to thrive as they enjoy their later years together in relative peace, often going back to their home in Miami, surrounded by family and memories. After decades of friendship, admiration, and occasional distance, Barry Gibb has finally opened up about his true feelings toward British pop legend Cliff Richard. Now 79 years old, the last surviving Bee Gee reflected with honesty and emotion on a relationship that has lasted more than half a century in the ever-changing world of music. For years, fans have wondered about the nature of their friendship. Two of the most influential voices in pop history, whose careers often crossed paths, but whose personalities seem to exist in different musical worlds. Barry, never one to speak without thinking, has chosen this moment in his life to finally share the truth about what Cliff Richard really meant to him and how their paths shaped each other. Cliff was one of the first artists who made me believe that you could be decent and famous at the same time, Barry began, thinking back on their early encounters during the swinging 60s. At a time when many artists were caught up in the chaos of fame, Cliff's calmness, humility, and unwavering moral compass stood out. He never lost his faith, even when the business tried to break him. I respected that. For Barry, who had seen firsthand the temptations and tragedies that came with superstardom, Cliff's steadiness was something rare, a kind of quiet rebellion against the darker side of show business. Barry also remembered how Cliff's success paved the way for British artists like himself and his brothers to dream bigger. When we were still trying to find our sound, Cliff had already conquered the charts. He showed us that you didn't have to be American to make it big. You could be from England or from anywhere, and the world would still listen. This acknowledgement carries special meaning as the Bee Gees themselves would later become global icons, helping to define not just pop and disco music, but a cultural era. In Barry's view, Cliff Richard's early success helped tear down the barriers that once separated British musicians from the international stage. Yet Barry's revelations weren't just about admiration. He also addressed the quiet distance that grew between them over the years, a divide that puzzled many observers. We weren't the kind of friends who called each other every day, but whenever we met, there was always respect. Sometimes life just takes you in different directions. He spoke of how the Bee Gees' rise to fame in the 1970s, with hits like Stayin Alive and How Deep Is Your Love, placed him in a whirlwind of touring, recording, and media frenzy that made personal relationships difficult to maintain. When you're on top of the world, you think you have time for everyone, but fame moves faster than friendship. Still, Gibb made it clear that his admiration for Cliff Richard never faded. What I've always admired most about Cliff is that he stayed true to himself. He didn't follow trends. He made his own. Even when the world mocked him for being clean-cut or religious, he stood tall. That takes courage. Barry's words carried the tone of a man who understood all too well the cost of being authentic in an industry built on image and reinvention. He hinted that Cliff's ability to balance fame with faith was something he envied, calling him a man who never let the stage change the soul. In a particularly touching moment, Barry reflected on the bond of survival that unites artists of their generation. We've both seen friends go too soon. Maurice, Robin, Andy, all my brothers. They were my life. And Cliff has lost people too. When you've been in this business as long as we have, you realize that just surviving it is a miracle. His voice, filled with quiet sadness, turned reflective. Cliff's still here, still singing, still smiling. That's strength. That's faith in motion. Gibb's comments also revealed a deeper sense of kinship rooted in endurance and legacy. We're both from an era where music came from the heart, not the machine. What I love about Cliff is that he still believes in melody, in lyrics that mean something. That's rare today. He described how the two occasionally exchanged notes of encouragement over the years, and how seeing Cliff continue to tour inspired him to keep performing even after the loss of his brothers. In the end, Barry's truth about Cliff Richard wasn't about controversy or confession. It was about gratitude. It was the heartfelt acknowledgement of one legend to another, born from decades of silent respect. People always want drama, but the truth is simpler. Cliff's a good man, one of the best. He never gave up and he never gave in. That's what I'll always admire about him. At 79, Barry Gibb speaks not as a superstar chasing headlines, but as a survivor, paying tribute to a peer who shares his rare understanding of the highs and lows of fame. His words remind us that behind the bright lights and screaming fans, there exists a quiet fraternity of artists who endured, evolved, and remained true to their hearts. For Barry Gibb, telling the truth about Cliff Richard was not an act of revelation. It was an act of love, respect, and timeless appreciation for a man who, like him, never stopped believing in the power of